And VR will necessitate new graphics frameworks and new ways of like working with graphics, because VR is going to require a ton of like geometry manipulation, and that's something that's not really, and like real time geometry, and that's something that's just not seen in the way that it needs to be developed quite yet, anyways. Uh, and that's why you're seeing that's one reason why you're seeing like Metal and Vulkan and other new graphics libraries, because those are going to be like much better at working with like geometry shaders and doing like dynamic geometry and like rendering like different kinds of like perspectives and stuff like that, and doing a lot of like custom things. And well, so everyone's like seen Drake's like Hotline Bling, right? So like like the meme that everyone's passing around where he's like standing in the cube and the perspective is being distorted for each like vertex in the cube, kind of. I don't think a lot of people think of it like this, but I kind of saw it, and there's a lot of like interesting effects, and like visually there were a lot of like interesting scenes in the music video. So it's just cool to see like the perspective being distorted, and it's like very similar to like what I'm working on with my graphics library called Spectra, and I'm sure that other people have done like other very similar things in the past. The library that I'm working on, Spectra, allows you to create these like hallucinogenic like perspective shifting 3D video effects. But here's like a GIF that one of my friends showed off today, and I think I've actually seen it before. Basically, what I want to do is like focus on like creating like custom graphics pipelines that allow you to do this stuff, and it works with like more information than vertex shaders normally work with, and it allows you to do like perspective shifting effects, and you can use those kind of effects as like a means to highlight UI to like interface elements in AR. So like, so say you like approach like a door or something in augmented reality, or like a window, or like a bulletin board, and you notice that there's like let's say there's advertisements on this bulletin board, or maybe there's like a poster in the window, but it's like a augmented reality poster or something. It's like a like virtual ad or something. As you get close to it, like maybe you can use perspective shifting effects as a means to like highlight UI to like to certain interface elements. Um, so like as you approach the door, like the or as you approach the bulletin board, like the virtual poster sort of like comes off the wall, and like it moves different relative to your motion than your environment. And this stuff could also probably make you pretty nauseous. But I mean, you could do like you could have like certain like hyperdimensional like experiences that like no one even like right now could comprehend. Like there's certain like experiences that you could have that just like are not possible with like our current like three-dimensional perspective of the world. Um, and it's really interesting to think about like what how that's going to be, and like really sucks to think that like it's not likely that I'll be able to do it. I don't want to say it like that. I really believe in myself. I'm just trying to like figure out how to position myself in such a way that I can work on this stuff, um, and in like a creative manner. Because I'm just like if I have to like call myself up as like a software developer, like honestly, like I'm not as good as I'd like to be as a software developer, and I probably won't ever really be like. And as much as I like try to improve my software development skills, like I'm just like I notice that other people are just like way faster than me. So say that I've got to like work myself through like doing front end development and doing this and doing that, like when it's like stuff that I'm not even good at, like please get me to like working on like math or something. um it's just like frustrating to think that like I really might not be able to do this. I mean, it's pretty much saying like you're not allowed to participate in this wave of innovation. Like, and it's so irritating because I've wanted nothing other than to do that for like the past like 4 or 5 years. Like I kept seeing like, oh, here's this thing that's so cool, but I can see beyond it. Like I want to I want to try to build that because I know that's the next step. And I know that other people can see it, but that's what motivates me to work on it harder and to work on it really as hard as I can, because like I know that there's a ton of people that want to do this stuff. So more about like perspective shifting effects and whatever. So these effects are basically sort of like optical refinements in virtual reality, or could be presented as optical refinements in virtual reality. And so apparently that art history class at Virginia Tech kind of paid off, I guess. It's funny because Virginia Tech's at engineering school, but damn, them Greeks had some big ass columns. But in my opinion, they were just using optical refinements to compensate for the tiny penises. So, congratulations if you're like one of like the 12 people in the world to get those jokes. Not that any one of those 12 people laughed, but so this is why I'm working on building a library called Spectra that allows programmers to easily modify some of the most basic elements of 3D rendering systems. So, for example, like how uniforms, projection, and perspective are processed, so that so that GIF that I displayed earlier is just like one example of an effect that I want to achieve with what I'm building. So for one example, with Spectra, you could attach parameters for various perspectives to different objects in a 3D scene. So the parameters for your perspective generate your viewing frustum, and if you're in film or if you've done 3D programming, then you'll know what I mean. And you can have multiple perspective parameters and render them in the same scene. But wait, I know what you're thinking. But David, then you can have collision detection, and what happens when several objects overlap? Like, isn't that confusing? It doesn't really matter. You can just add another layer to your rendering and physics and stuff that calculates the rendered objects first. They're rendered for their perspective and for their separate perspectives, and then you perform collision detection and physics on top of like the rendered objects. Which again requires like custom like graphics pipelines and stuff. So even though your own movements will not be correlated one-to-one with the objects as they appear to move, the physics will still all hold up. It'll be like really weird though. It'll probably be pretty interesting and lead to some like really weird like cool things that people haven't thought of. But or am I just making that up? Did I make that collision detection stuff up? Or did I? I don't know. You decide. But again, you need like custom graphics pipelines that are like easy to construct dynamically in order to do this. So that's what I'm building, Spectra, a graphics library that focuses on dynamic graphics pipelines, and you can encapsulate your own custom graphics pipelines within XML and then like dynamically render various objects using like multiple pipelines. I don't really actually expect this Spectra library to really take off or be widely adopted in any way, really. It's mostly for my own, like, it's mostly for me so that I can, like, learn how to do this stuff and learn how to, like, do all these things that I'm talking about and play around with these different, like, rendering techniques and just play around with different ideas. So this library is really more for me than it is for other people. So I don't really actually expect this will take off, but I don't know, who knows. But yeah, again, and this is kind of a theme here. Like I don't really know if like other people have done this stuff yet. I mean, it looks like they've done like a lot of like what I'm talking about, and I don't really know how well it would really play out, but. One of the most interesting aspects to the Spectra graphics library that I'm building is that Spectra is based on functional programming paradigms like dependency injection to maximize like flexibility. God damn it, I love Swift so far. By far, it's like my favorite like first party language. It's great. Thanks, Apple. um, and so why am I so excited about working on this library? Well, it's like the intersection of functional programming with a brand new graphics programming framework. And I'm new to graphics programming, so this is pretty awesome. And so I've recently read a lot about 3D markup languages, and so there's been a ton of work on these in the past, like all the way back to like the 90s and 80s, and probably before then. And I think these like 3D markup languages will become like very important for VR and AR, Spectra also uses XML, which can be adapted to pretty much any platform. And so you can develop like 3D scenes and activities and interactions, and then they're all defined in XML or whatever markup language you want to use. And they're like self-contained experiences which can be loaded via HTTP. And this means like in augmented reality, your virtual space becomes like a web browser. So you retrieve these experiences from a web server, and content is served via XML or whatever markup format, and then the objects and their interactions and the rules for user interactions are all loaded in via XML, or they're loaded into your environment somehow. I mean, there might be like more appropriate like formats for doing this. Who knows how things are going to turn out. For example, some things loaded via XML, as my library is currently coded, would be extremely unsafe. So it's like hard to like dynamically like define all this stuff so they can be like loaded in to like any platform and experienced in the same way without having to like write like an actual like program that runs, which is kind of boring because then you can't like mesh together like different programs that are running at the same time. Like whereas like if you like load in the XML or the markup or whatever into your like AR type browser, then you can like have the browser like rendering like multiple activities at the same time in your augmented reality. Whatever. The most important part is that you're going to retrieve data from a server and share these streaming experiences with friends in AR. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have to say about my graphics library. Pretty excited to work on it. I'm hoping to get. I gotta finish up this app that I'm working on and just like get the alpha version like to where it's functioning. I sort of distracted myself working on this like graphic stuff for a while. It's funny because like I thought that I was like never like I just never really imagined myself getting into 3D graphics at this point. I just like, and now I find myself like interested in like video games again, which is always what I kind of wanted to do when I was a kid. And I'm just gonna tie up a few loose ends in the next video. That's it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and whatnot. Don't actually subscribe. I make really stupid videos.